Welcome, Standing Committee on Social Development, public meeting this morning with the Collège Nordique. Before we start with the meeting, I've asked Ms. Green to open up with a prayer, please. Ms. Green.
Good morning. We gather together here today intent on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect to all. May our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before us. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Green. What we'll do is I'll start with brief introductions, starting with Mr. Simpson.
Good morning, R.J. Simpson, MLA for Hay River North.
Kevin O'Reilly, Frame Lake.
Julie Green, Yellowknife Center.
Michael Nadley, MLA for Ditchell.
Tom Bowyer, MLA for Trinidad Williday.
Good morning, Frederick Blake, MLA for Mackenzie Delta.
Good morning, Shane Thompson, Nahende. On my left is Megan Welsh, our research analyst, and on my right is Michael Ball, our clerk, committee clerk. Review of the agenda is a one-item agenda, which is Collège Nordique presentation. And so can I have a mover? Moved by Michael, second by Julie. All in favor? Okay. Any declaration of conflict of interest? Seeing none. At this point in time, Ms. Claremont, I'll get you to introduce yourself and your colleague, and then we'll go right into the president, or sorry, I don't know what your titles are, so I'll get you to introduce yourselves, and then we'll go from there. And you just lead right into your presentation. Thank you.
Well, I'm Josée Clermont. I'm the Executive Director of Collège Nordique, and we have our president here of the college, Monsieur Jean-François Pitt, and maybe Monsieur Pitt wants to say a few words, if that's okay.
Mr. Pitt.
Bonjour et bienvenue. Merci pour votre temps. I would like to really thank you for your time this morning. I know it's early and everything, but we've been working on this for quite some time, and we hope to present the college as one of the entity for the post-secondary education. So with that, I'll leave it to Josée.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Pitt.
I'm,
Ms. Claremont, just
sorry.
through me. So
Yes.
is that Ms. Claremont? Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, at this exciting time of post-secondary education transformation in the NWT, I'm really thrilled to have this time with you this morning to share our story and our aspirations. So again, thank you very much for accepting to meet with us. So this is our presentation outline. So firstly, we'll talk about the college, who we are, and our successes. And also, we'd like to show you how we can help you expand opportunities for post-secondary education in the NWT. So who we are, I'll talk about the college itself, our mission, services, and the people who make it great. So we offer a unique post-secondary education experience. In fact, we're the only French language post-secondary education institution north of the 60th parallel who offers courses in person and online. And we offer services that are complementary and differentiated to other existing post-secondary education programming in the territory, or that address gaps that are identified by our learners and by our government partners. Our vision is to stand out for our northern character, the accessibility of our training, and also for our language programs. So our mission is to offer language training, post-secondary programs in French, and professional development that supports the needs of the labor market in a context of lifelong learning. So we offer French second language training to support the GNWT and the federal government meet their French language services and communication targets based on each government's roadmap. And our services are also a way for graduates of French and French immersion programs to continue their studies in French right at home, or to maintain their language skills. And our services are also for those who want to reorient their career. And now I'd like to talk about our successes because we've had quite a few over the past couple of years. Like I said, we offer language training. We offer it to federal government employees, to the Army, to the GNWT. I'm sure that you know that we've designed the evaluation tool for the French language evaluations. And in the past 2 years, we've done about 200 evaluations. And we offer also the refresher course to the NWT employees. We also offer a lot of courses to the community. So we have French, English, Clicho, and Spanish. And we do lots of tailored courses that are tailored. And we do a lot for the health professionals. So we've had a lot of doctors and nurses and physiotherapists come through our doors. And not only do they learn the language, but they learn about the active offer and how to offer the services in French, and also about language, about cultural competencies. So a good example is this woman who grew up in the North. She went through the French immersion program, and she's now a physiotherapist at Stanton Hospital. And she's taking this French course that's for health professionals. And 2 weeks ago, the course was on cultural competencies. So the next day, she was able to apply that with her Inuit patient because the skills were transferable. And we know how much these skills are needed in our health system. So everything related to French language services in the NWT connects with us. And we are even the official supplier with the House of Commons. And I have to say, many of you MLAs, we even have a minister who took courses with us. So there's, in the package that I sent you, there's a sheet with 3 testimonials. And instead of reading the testimonials, I thought I would share with you what came out of those testimonials. So the first thing was about the variety of learning strategies. And I heard some of you before say that the programs you took in French when you went to school pretty much sucked, were pretty bad. And so what we do is we have a lot of strategies, a variety of strategies, and fun games, videos, music. So people do appreciate that. The other thing that they appreciate is the accessibility. So an example of accessibility is that we had GNWT employees who took a course here in Yellowknife, and there were 3 people from Inuvik joining in. And another example is there was a high-ranked officer in the Army, and he needed to take a 5-week intensive course, and he was so happy to be able to take it with us because he could stay with his family. So he didn't have to go somewhere else down south. Another thing that people appreciate is that our courses are tailored to learners' needs. So the first night of a course, we always do a needs assessment, and the course outline is built around the learner's needs. And our teachers are highly qualified and dedicated. These are the numbers of students that we've had. So you can see that I wasn't there the first 2 years, so I don't know how these numbers were counted. Went down in 77, we had operational problems, but as you can see, we've fixed that. And our numbers keep on growing, and this year we had 284. That's a 20% increase from last year. And in fact, since I prepared this slide, we have 6 more students. We had a demand for a new course starting this summer, actually. So things are going pretty well. We also offer post-secondary programs, and we have partners, actually. I'm very proud to say that we have 2 new partners this year. We have University of Alberta for a business and administration program and tourism management. So these courses, we're launching them, and they'll be available this fall. And we also have a new partner, is Université Sainte-Anne from Nova Scotia, for the early childhood education. So that's a program that we were offering before with another partner, but the students could not access financial assistance, so we decided to switch with Université Sainte-Anne. And then the last one is with Collège Nordique in British Columbia. So you can see that these occupations, administrative officer and assistants, early childhood education, They're all high-demand occupations identified in the labor market forecast and needs assessments in 2016. So we align our program offerings with the needs of the market, of the labor market. Our learners gave us a resounding 93% overall satisfaction rate across all indicators this winter. And the reason for that is we take quality assurance very seriously. We do evaluations, midterm evaluations, and at the end. So if a course is 10 weeks, after 5 weeks we do evaluations. And so if there's something, we can correct it right away, and then at the end. We also have a pedagogical advisor who meets with the teachers and visits all the classrooms and meets with them after her observations to offer them constructive feedback. So we are continually working on improving ourselves. Because we had so much success with the language school, and in May 2017, we decided to do a study to see how we can support people in their education. We were very, very thrilled with the response because we had over 386 respondents. 90 responded in French and 296 in English. And there were 4 areas that were identified. People want more language training. They want more intensive French programs. They want them during the regular, like in the winter, but they also want them in the summer. They want English business courses. By the way, we're open this summer for the first time, and we're working at full capacity. We were asked to offer more Aboriginal courses across all the territory, not only here in Yellowknife, and people want all the official languages. They don't want just Clicho. They also want some courses on cultural awareness and also how to communicate efficiently, to work efficiently when you're in the communities. So we were pretty much asked to do this online program for people coming to work here to actually develop their skills. The third area was for post-secondary education. People want more opportunities in French, for French immersion and French students, and also for those who want to reorient their career. Another thing that people asked was a first-year university that would be bilingual. So that way we could reach out to Anglophone, Francophone, and French immersion students. And for professional development, people want courses in management, so to increase the capacity of the organizations in the community. So now the third part of my presentation, how we can help you expand opportunities for post-secondary education. So first, I'd like to talk about the communauté franco-ténoise. Alfred Moses declared on March 1st, 2018, that the Francophone community is a vibrant part of the multicultural mosaic of the Northwest Territories. So we at Collège Nordique recognize ourselves in this statement. In fact, we acknowledge that our role in the community is to support learners in all their diversity. Today, the French-speaking population makes up for 10% of the population. 75% of the Francophones reported having been born outside the territory, so they represent a growing segment of the labor force and positive contributors to the vitality of our economy and of our communities. So since 2011 and 2016, the number of French-speaking people in the territories increased, but if you look at the rest of Canada, it went down. So we are very, very encouraged by this momentum because in our experience, education brings people together, it creates opportunities and contributes to the overall community cohesiveness and social mobility. We are very responsive to our communities. We are a community-based institution created by and for our community in November 2011. Over the past 3 years, we've expanded responsibly to better serve our communities. We relocated our operations to a larger location. We invested in increasing our online course offerings, and we opened our doors to more learners. So inspired by our success and by the winds of change in the NWT post-secondary education system, we went to our community in May 2017, like I said, and asked people for their needs and interest. Out of the 386 respondents, 77% had not taken a course with Collège Nordique. So that's a strong indication of the interest in the community. 26 recommendations were identified. Based on these recommendations and the NWT labor market needs identified in the Skills for Success initiative, we made a new strategic plan that is inclusive and reflective of the diversity of our territory. We are looking to expand our programming to build on the successes and subject matter expertise we have developed in language training and assessment. We are committed to the reconciliation. In fact, CNF acknowledges the GNWT's strong commitment to implementing the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Our organization's culture aligns itself with the GNWT's objective to support linguistic diversity. So this is why for the past 2 years we've been working with a Dene Clicho instructor to offer Clicho classes. So in fact, these classes were asked by a group of Francophones, and they became so popular, then they asked for a level 2, and then we've been offering it to pretty much everybody. And in the level 2, what the teacher did, she taught by projects. So she taught them how to do bannock, and then they went on the land and they collected spruce gum and they learned about traditional medicine. And so the students were just thrilled with this course. And so it offers a cultural component, but also promotes the use of official languages and contributes to the language revitalization. So Collège Nordique is more than a Francophone college. We create a cross-cultural experience that promotes understanding amongst communities and respects the rich diversity of the people of the Northwest Territories. We are eager to expand our courses in this area and are in discussions with partnering with Indigenous organizations to look at possible online learning modules, whether they be for language courses or cultural awareness. Out of the 386 respondents of our survey, 77% said that there was a need for Aboriginal language and culture programming. Our commitment to reconciliation is truly Nordic in its intention and its implementation. In fact, in our 2018-23 strategic plan, one of our values is pride. Value and contribute to the vitality of the languages and the cultures characterizing the Northwest Territories. We have a saying at Collège Nordique Francophone is that everything related to French languages services and the NWT connects with us because we provide French evaluations and refreshment courses to the NWT employees. We retain the contract with the House of Commons. We provide language training to the Canadian Armed Forces, and we deliver the most comprehensive language program north of the 60th parallel. We actively engage both the federal and territorial governments to support their mandate and obligations as provided for in the respective Official Languages Acts. Recently, we engaged with the federal government in discussions pertaining to the renewal of the Official Languages Act of Canada. Specifically, we met with the Commissioner of Official Languages. We met with Senate members who are senators who are members of the Committee on Official Languages, and also we met with members of the Standing Committee on Official Languages. Our objective is to ensure that the specific considerations and characteristics of the communauté franco-ténoise are understood and represented in the reports that will inform the modernization of the Act. Each learner that completes a course with us has a net positive impact. While our numbers may seem small, and what some might consider modest, has a big impact on availability of services and the quality of life. So think of the physiotherapists I told you about who grew up here and can now offer services in French, but also with other people. She has the cultural competencies. Our place is in the publicly supported NWT post-secondary education system. Graduates of French schools and French immersion programs have no option to pursue post-secondary education studies at home. Yet, there are more and more opportunities in the public service for bilingual positions. Also, according to the Conference Board of Canada and the Skills for Success initiative, 77% of it's forecasted that 77% of the jobs in the NWT will require a post-secondary education. So essentially, we need to support building a knowledge economy here at home. Many learners in the NWT do not follow a typical path through the education system for many reasons, and there's a need for programs that offer laddering opportunities. And for these learners, Collège Nordique can serve as an essential pathway to post-secondary education and to careers. We have a knowledge of local labor market needs in the communities across the territories, and we benefit from strong relationships and support from the communities we serve. And we will continue to develop strong connections to the communities and labor markets to ensure that we can respond quickly and effectively to changing needs through new program offerings and services. So we do not want to become a big college like Aurora College. We don't want to duplicate services. We want to remain nimble and responsive. So for example, if in a specific industry there's a need for some type of training, we can offer it, have a cohort, and when it's done, we move on to something else. We are confident that we can work together to increase funding supports from federal government for training programs. Our goal is to remain flexible while retaining academic rigor and organizational discipline. So at this important juncture, when the GNWT is considering a new legislative framework for post-secondary education in our territory, we propose an approach that is complementary and differentiated rather than competitive with other post-secondary education options. We see this legislative framework as an opportunity for recognition. Our main source of funding is with Heritage Canada, the GNWT, and a little bit from Health Canada, and from tuition fees. So maybe people think that we're already publicly supported, but the lack of official recognition and the lack of stable core funding really prevents us from offering predictable access to predictable access to programs and services for our future students. The community demand for post-secondary education and training and local labor market demand surpass our current financial capacity to deliver. Equitable base funding is necessary for the Collège Nordique to grow and meet the demands of our labor market and of our communities. Through our research and engagement with the federal government, we know that a Francophone college established under legislation in a minority setting, such as Collège Nordique, could access more federal government funding from federal departments, which in turn would benefit the GNWT by leveraging its own investments. Publicly supported college status would allow Collège Nordique to substantially increase its base funding, thus not having to rely mostly on GNWT grants and precarious year-over-year individual grant applications. Stable funding would better equip Collège Nordique to grow, increase its programming and partnerships to meet the demands of the labor market as demonstrated in the Skills for Success initiative and in the study that we made in 2017. We would be pleased to work with the GNWT on a turnkey proposal to engage the right federal government departments to leverage additional investment in post-secondary education and training. It is our opinion that together we can build a stronger case to support and cast a wider net to access resources. We took great interest in the discussion paper related to governance of post-secondary education developed recently by the Ministry of Education. And we see this as a golden opportunity to shape the future of post-secondary education in the NWT, a system that will support economical growth and also respect the rich diversity and talent of our people. We were disappointed that there was no pathway for Collège Nordique to become a publicly supported college, but it was a clear message to us that we need to do more outreach. And I'm confident that after talking, the GNWT will see our value and deepen with us its engagement. We respectfully invite the government of the Northwest Territories to explore other models, such as the ones in Ontario. In December 2017, 2 bills were passed, one for a Francophone university and one for 9 Aboriginal colleges. And the type of governance was autonomous government. So by the Indigenous, for the Indigenous, by the Francophones, for the Francophones. These are only examples, and maybe we can do something custom-built to work together. Now is the time to come together to find solutions. In both the Francophone and Indigenous context, the federal government has an interest and a responsibility in supporting our institutions. In Ontario, the case to the federal government was made stronger by the funding commitment of the province approaching the funding discussions. Our research into recent policy undertaking in post-secondary education across Canada revealed the trend in governments and stakeholders engaging in policy co-creation. In fact, co-creation was a major theme at the 2017 Institute for Public Administration Canada's National Conference in Charlottetown. Our commitment is to work with the territorial government to be innovative, strategic, and to be your partner to expand post-secondary education opportunities across the NWT. Some recent examples of post-secondary transformation in Ontario, like I mentioned, for the 9 Indigenous colleges, they created a policy co-creation table between ministry officials and the Indigenous institutes. And for the Francophone University, they had a board of community advisors and academics who worked with the ministry leading up to the legislation. The journey taken in Ontario demonstrates what can be done through cooperation and partnership. I think that we can do something special here and an NWT custom-built process to set us up for long-term success. So, anchored in our values of creativity, diversity, engagement, and pride, Collège Nordique continues to strive forward, driven by our desire to serve our community and to expand post-secondary education opportunities in the Northwest Territory. Our mission to offer language training, post-secondary education, and professional development to support the labor market and lifelong learning will be actualized when we find our place within the publicly supported post-secondary education system. Our 5-year strategic plan has set us forward on a path with a clear vision to distinguish ourselves by our Nordique character, the accessibility of our programming, and of our successful language school. The government of the Northwest Territories, Collège Nordique Francophone, and other post-secondary education stakeholders are in a unique position to co-create and custom-build a post-secondary education system for our territory and its people. So together we can continue to build a very bright future. Thank you.
One more. Committee questions? Ms. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank you for your presentation. It's very constructive and very positive. And easy to understand and follow what it is that you're asking for. What have you told ECE directly? Have you met with the minister or the officials? Do they know what your specific ask is to be considered a post-secondary education facility so that you are able to obtain recognition and public funding?
Thank you, Ms. Green. No problem. Ms. Claremont?
Sorry,
No problem.
first time. Okay, we have met, yes, we have met with ACE before. That's why we were quite disappointed when we saw what the discussion paper, maybe we were not clear enough, that's possible. We have a meeting with the Minister of Education next week, and we have met yesterday with, and last week with two of your colleagues, with two other MLAs.
Thank you, Ms. Claremont. Ms. Green?
Thank you. Jose, today the minister is tabling the Aurora College Foundational Review, and it will be a public document. And I'd be very interested to hear if you see yourselves in that, that review. The review is less an inventory of the college and more a vision of what it could be. And so it would be very interesting to hear what you have to say about that. So please stay in touch with us via a letter or an email when you've had a chance to look at that. And then finally, I've got kind of a left field question, but it seems relevant in the context. The Assembly tries to offer language interpretation for members so that there's a diversity of languages represented in the House. But it's always a struggle to get someone to do the French interpretation, despite all the Francophones who live here. And I recognize interpretation is a specific skill. Just because you can speak French doesn't mean that you're going to be a great interpreter. But why are there no interpreters, or they're so hard to find? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Ms. Claremont?
I don't have an answer to that. I have to say, we even struggle to find teachers at the college. It's like, I think it's like any other position. We have to attract people to the north and try to retain them. So that challenge is all over the place, and yeah.
Claremont? Mr. O'Reilly?
Thanks. Merci beaucoup. Thanks for coming here this morning. I guess maybe I'll just start with a quick comment. Our daughter had to leave Yellowknife to pursue post-secondary education in French. She went to Université de Saint-Boniface. So I have some sympathy with what you said here this morning, and I certainly appreciate the fact that you've expanded your language courses outside of just French, Tlicho, Spanish, and that there's demand for indigenous languages as well. So, and I think that there is some common experience with revitalization of French language, particularly in minority situations, that can be shared with indigenous peoples as well. So I wanted to follow up on Ms. Green's comments about the foundational review. I just want to make sure, were you folks actually interviewed as part of the foundational review? Thanks.
Mr. O'Reilly? Ms. Claremont?
No, I wasn't interviewed. I responded to a survey, like the survey that was sent out.
Thank you, Ms. Claremont. Mr. O'Reilly?
Okay, well, I'm not very happy to hear that. Yeah, I believe you did make a submission on the post-secondary education discussion paper that went out. Can you just talk a little bit about maybe what you said in your submission? Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. O'Reilly. Ms. Claremont?
I'm not sure which document you're talking about. Was it the one I just sent recently for this meeting, or?
Can I
Mr. O'Reilly?
clarify? Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah. So ECE put out a discussion paper on post-secondary education, and I believe you put in a submission on that. Can you maybe just highlight what Collège Nordique said in the submission?
You, Mr.
I
O'Reilly?
think you probably covered it in the presentation in one way or another, but if there was any specific did you propose any specific language or pathways for Collège Nordique to get official recognition and to, as I understand it, the plan is to have a broad post-secondary education act, and that within there would be certain pathways identified for recognition and perhaps even funding. What specific sort of changes would you like to see to those pathways or that were outlined in the discussion paper to ensure that Collège Nordique can flourish in the future? Thanks, Mr. Chair. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. O'Reilly. Ms. Claremont.
Yes, so we, what we saw in there that could apply to us was for a non-profitable organization to become a degree-granting institution, which, and if that were the case, we would only be able to have some programs that would be accredited, and we would have to ask for it every year, and we would not have the funding that would come with it. We would have to rely on grants like we are at the moment. What we are asking is that there's a pathway for a non-profitable organization to become a publicly supported college, a college under legislation with stable and core funding. And like I said in my presentation, the federal government does have funding, will fund. It's possible to get so much more funding if we were publicly supported through legislation. And that way the GNWT could leverage their own investments. I don't know if I was clear enough.
Mr. O'Reilly.
Yeah, just, sorry, waiting for the mic to go on. Yeah, no, I think I understand that. And I would encourage you to raise those issues with the minister when you meet with her next week. And stay in touch with us as this rolls out. There are plans, I guess, to bring forward some kind of legislation on this before the end of the 18th Assembly. So it's a good time for your engagement on this. I don't think I have anything else for right now, Mr. Chair, but I want to thank them for coming.
Thank you, Mr. O'Reilly. Any other comments, questions? I have one. In there, your program, you talked about SFA and accessing programs or students accessing funding to do your programs. Is this a challenge that you guys are facing right now, Ms. Claremont? Mr. Claremont?
Yes. No, it was just that for the post-secondary education, the post-secondary programs, we had some partnerships before with institutions that were not part of the institutions agreed, like the ones that you can get funding, financial assistance. Like we have to offer them through through a partnership because we're not accredited. But those partners have to be part of that list of universities and colleges that are allowed, and so we've changed those partnerships, and now that's been resolved, so that's okay. Can I come back to Mr. O'Reilly's question because I just no.
Just
Yes?
joking. Yes, Ms. Claremont, you go ahead. Yes, please.
Okay. There's another part that we ask in our reply and our feedback to the discussion paper, and it's to we're respectfully asking the government to engage us in a co-creation model. So to be involved in the discussions leading to the development of this legislation. Like I talked about, this has been done in other provinces, it's done across Canada, and I think that we have the expertise, we would like to work with you, and I think that would really set us up for success in the future. And Collège Nordique has value for this, for our territory.
Thank you, Ms. Claremont. That actually leads into my next question, because quite nicely. So, are you guys looking at the potential, instead of just having Collège Nordique on its own, but potentially working with Aurora College and have become a satellite, campus similar to, right now we have 3 campuses, one in Fort Smith, one in Yellowknife, and one in Inuvik. So would your potential, are you guys looking at, or looking at the feasibility of that? Just not just saying yourself, or is it something that you guys be willing to work with the government on as a satellite? And so, yeah, I guess we'll start with that question. Thank you, Ms. Claremont.
2 years ago, we approached Aurora College to actually work with them and have a partnership. And finally, we were proposing a model like it exists in Prince Edward Island between Collège de Lille, which is the Francophone college, and Holland College. And I have to say that over there are 2 private colleges. But what they did, they partnered up, but each one keeps their governance. Because the Anglophone college felt that if the other one was amalgamated, they don't have the expertise for the French. So they felt that for their students, they just wouldn't have the trust, and it just wasn't a good idea. So what we proposed is a model in which we would keep our governance, but students we could share all kinds of things, like space, like expertise, and also that if students were in one college, they could come to the other one, assuming they would be accredited, and take courses at ours, and that would go both ways. And so we had looked at that. It didn't work at the time, and we're going to look at the review that's going to be tabled today and see if that's there. But we certainly are open to, we want to work with other people, so we're open to discussing opportunities.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Claremont. I guess I'm just looking at it, you have an expertise that is available, that is unique. The colleges have uniquenesses where, campuses potentially could be unique in the way they do things. So I'm trying to encourage you, I guess, that, selling it as its uniqueness, and I'm hoping that the government will look at that as the uniqueness and working together. And so I guess if we have too many different colleges and out there, it weakens, I think, the product. But if we can work together, and if it's a satellite, or we still keep the governance structure, I mean, that's very important to you. I've heard that very clearly. But are you guys willing to do that, I guess, is the thing, is because we have Deshenta right now as well out there that's looking at it, and we have a small population, but we have some very unique needs in the Northwest Territories, and there's opportunities, besides your guys' Collège Nordique, we also have Deshenta plus Aurora College, and I think if we could all work together, it would be better for our residents, and to have opened up the opportunity for people to come up north. So is this something that you guys are really looking at? And the other thing is, are you guys trying to become a university, or just staying connected to the college approach to things? Thank you, Ms. Claremont.
Like I said before, that our services are complementary and differentiated, and we really don't want to compete with any other existing post-secondary institution. When you talk about satellite, we have offered courses in Inuvik and Hay River and Fort Smith. It's a little bit challenging because it's far, but so in terms of satellite, I don't know if you had it in mind that it would be geographical, but certainly, there's a need all over the territory. But I can't speak for my board, and in terms of partnering with another college, I think that's a board decision, but I'll let Mr. Pitre talk about that. If you.
Thank you, Ms. Claremont. Mr. Pitt?
Yeah, I think the challenges of right now is also not just the college being a college, it's just the way the law is. We can only have one. There's the study, so nobody really know where our college is situated right now. We did have talks with them a couple of years back, and the model was a little complicated for them too to understand. How would that be? Would the position have to be bilingual? It's one thing to think about it, but the implementation of it, it's a two thing. Until some of these changes are there, the barriers are there. Like basically, there's those challenges unless you allow other people to be part of it. We know what our college is going to be. And I mean, we're open to any discussion. We're there to promote and help and to get all these courses efficiently as we can provided. But there is technical issues right now that, as the Shenta, as us, we're in a standstill right now, not knowing what the bigger institution's going to do. And two is that there is probably ways to do it. It's just a matter of how we're going to do it. And this is where we're at right now, and that's what we're trying to promote. And even a lot of people don't know there's a Collège Francophone, so we're trying to promote that as much as we can too. The biggest hurdle is that we're not accredited, and we can't access a lot of funding. Like really, all the French funds comes from Ottawa. So you know, if we are accredited somehow with the law, there's a lot of opportunity. That's not, you're getting a beautiful gem for not a lot of money. That's how I see it. It was the same when I built Alain Saint-Cyr. It was the same when I built the Commission Scolaire. It's a change of mindset of some people to understand that it's a benefit, added value, and really we're not there to compete. We want to be very clear on that. We don't want to take from somebody to gain something. We want to be all the same, and we can offer our services. And if we can't help the other groups do the same, we'd be more than happy to do that.
Mr. Pete, I think that's very encouraging. I think if we're looking towards uniqueness and capacity building and that opportunity. So my next question is in regards to accreditation and, you know, access to student financial assistance and that. My understanding is it has to be over a 10-week period of time for SFA to kick in, for people to look at it. So with your courses, are your majority of courses just short, a month, 2 months, or they actually, meet the criteria of, 10 to 12 weeks? So, it's, the students actually have to spend quality time, I guess, I shouldn't say quality time, the time in the classroom to, achieve credit, getting a credit out of it. So could you just explain that briefly or explain that? Thank you, Ms. Claremont? Yeah, no, that's just.
Oh, et où? Ici? Oh, here. OK, j'avais pas remarqué ça. The student financial assistance is not an issue because most of our students are taking language courses with us, so they don't get financial assistance for that. We are, like I said, our partnerships for post-secondary are relatively new, so we're starting that. So we're still. I would be able to answer that in a year maybe, but right now it's not an issue. The issue that we have is core and base funding to run the college and to be able to offer more programs and develop and serve the community. That's a big issue that we have. And if we were accredited, publicly recognized in the system, we would be able to access more funds from the federal government.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Claremont. Any other questions? Mr. Riley.
Not so much a question, but I want to give you some ammunition. You talked about this concept of co-creation. That's probably new language for us, but there is. We do have a number of post-devolution resource management legislation bills that are being worked on. And the terminology that's used in that context is co-drafting. Now it's a context where Indigenous governments, through either their land rights agreements or the devolution agreement or recognition of Indigenous rights. There's a process going on where they're directly involved in drafting some of that legislation, and there's a number of technical working groups for each of the bills that ENR is developing. So that's a model that I think you may want to mention to the Minister of Education, Culture and Employment that, you know, you maybe would like to have some kind of a process like that in developing the post-secondary legislation that, and, you know, I could see where Deshinta would probably want to be part of that process as well, and maybe there's a technical working group with representation from yourselves, Deshinta, and maybe other interested folks to help co-draft that legislation. So there's a model for you that I think you can present to the minister as that's being used by a different department, trying to work with its partners. So anyways, just something that you can mention to the Minister of Education, Culture and Employment moving forward, that approach is being used in other areas. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. O'Reilly. Do you wish to comment on that, Ms.? No? Ms. Claremont?
Much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Claremont. Mr. Natalie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to thank both presenters for giving us their presentation. I think what it's done for me is give me a sense of clarity in terms of the role and purpose of Collège Nordique. You know, from my perspective, I've always tried to maintain at least support of my own Indigenous language, which is so slavey. And I always felt in some ways, you know, the support mechanisms most critical, I think, is just the fiscal support from governments. Sometimes was challenging, but I like how you kind of framed it in terms of creating pathways in terms of going forward and offering your services to other Indigenous languages to come on board. What I kind of sense is lacking from this government is a common vision in terms of languages, including French, of all the official languages. And so I think the opportunity is now that maybe government needs to at least try to prioritize that, especially in light of the whole college, I mean, the whole Aurora College Foundational Review. I think it's an opportune time for you to present to us, at least to create an understanding. So I appreciate that. Merci. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Natalie. Oh, okay. Is any other comments, questions for Ms. Claremont or Mr. Pitt? Ms. Claremont?
Yes, I would just like to comment on Mr. Nadley's comment. We certainly don't have the expertise in the Aboriginal languages, obviously, but what we do have is we have the expertise in how to teach a language and how to support teachers as well. And we also have the expertise on how to take a course and put it online so that it can be engaging. So we just hired someone from Université Laval, and Université Laval is the university in Canada that offers the most online courses, and her job is to take a course that's already existing and put it online with activities that are interesting. So I see that there would be so many opportunities to work together and bring everybody's expertise around the table, and our job would be to get the content specialists, which in the case of languages would be people who know the language in different Aboriginal languages and create courses that could be useful to everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Claremont. Seeing nothing else, we'll just close thank you very much for the presentation, and appreciate you taking your time to come here this so early in the morning. We greatly appreciate it. You fit it into our schedule. Greatly appreciate it. At this point in time, I'm just going to ask yourself and Mr. Pitt and the public to leave, and then we'll do a brief wrap up, and then we will. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.